This video is from 1927, 98 years ago. Basically, they are vlogging from the window of a plane. Isn't it wonderful?
Quite a comfortable body.
Look at the shadow of the plane on the ground.
Oh, that's an old friend of ours called Dennis Kincaid, who was a very well-known, when he was at Oxford, he was a very well-known comic man. He wrote poetry, books and novels and things. And he came from a well-known family of civil servants in India, and he joined the Indian Civil Service, and when he was out there he died, unfortunately. But he was a great personal friend of mine. Now here's another flight which Stephen went on, and this he went out with Sir Alan Cobham. Sir Alan Cobham in those days was one of our best known early pilots. The very first one was a man called Graham White, and he was before World War One. But this was a man called Sir Alan Cobham, who not only flew aeroplanes and was very famous as a pilot, but he was also a famous racing motorist. And he got killed driving he wanted to be the fastest on water as well, and he had a special motorboat built with a 250 horsepower engine, and he got drowned in one of the lakes in Cumberland. I can't remember which one it was. But anyway, Stephen flew out with him to Switzerland, and these are various shots he took from the air. They're of no particular interest now, but in those days, of course, as I say, very few people had cine cameras, so it was considered a great thing to show these films, and this was considered an exceptional shot with the shadow of the aeroplane reflected from the clouds. Now everybody flies, therefore these sort of phenomena are commonplace, but in those days very few people had ever been in an aeroplane. Therefore these films were very popular at the time. Look at the old primitive engines. Mounted well on the outside, with no cowls or anything, just the engine sitting on the front wings. I think this is a little bit dull. It goes on and on and on. But as I say, it was considered a great thing to fly at all, and to fly out to Switzerland with Sir Alan Cobham was quite something. And I think I'm right in saying this was the aerodrome at Hounslow. Hounslow was one of the places where they had an aerodrome. There weren't very many near London. This was long before, of course, the London Airport station was built. That was built at Hounslow, at Hendon, I mean. And this was, but the very first airport, now I've got it the wrong way round. The very first airport was at Hendon, and London Airport was built on the site of the old Hounslow Airport. But they were very primitive affairs, those early airports. There were no big buildings, you just went into huts And I noticed the men's hats, they date from that time. Everybody wore those sort of hats. I don't know what they were called. They weren't called Stetson. They had some, I think they were called Homburg hats. They were rather heavy hats with very thick brims, heavily embroidered brims. And I think Stephen rather tended to waste the film because he was so keen on taking films at all. If he went anywhere, such as this flight out, he'd go on taking hundreds of feet of this film, which after the beginning, one tends to lose interest. Now that's, in a sense, that is of some interest, because it shows how the aeroplanes were designed in those days. They didn't have rigid planes which were fixed onto spars in the body of the aeroplane. They were separate fabrications, and it was all sort of screwed together. And if you were inside, it was quite nerve-wracking, because all the wings were kept together with wires, which rattled about an awful lot. The whole aeroplane rattled about. Now this incident is taken in Switzerland, hence those letters C.